who's reporting from Ukraine currently. Shravan, we've been seeing these distressing visuals that have come in from the capital city of Kiev this morning with, buildings essentially broken down to the ground, facades destroyed, people hurt. Give us a sense of what's happening there currently.
Kiev, where we are given to understand that there were multiple explosions that took place. This was also in a mall, but this is not right inside Kiev. This is not the city center as such. This is called a Podilak district, which is in the outskirts of Kiev, where these attacks have taken place. Now, just to keep this in perspective, over the last few weeks, remember from the time when there have been intelligence reports suggesting that the Russian troops could enter Kiev to capture Kiev, or what they had initially planned, a blitzkrieg attack in the capital city of Ukraine. From that time onwards, we have seen that the Ukrainian forces have basically amped up their entire defense lines. In fact, earlier there were only about 2 defense lines, which has now been increased to 3. We are one of the few global networks to have been in Kiev just about a few days ago, about sometime last week, when we tried to enter Kiev. And Nupur, let me just tell you a little bit about our experience of entering Kiev, which will give you an understanding of what's the current situation. Now, even if you have to enter Kiev, one, you cannot enter from the northeastern and the northwestern route, primarily because these are the routes that have been captured by the Russians. So these are the 2 routes that they're trying to enter, but there is a particular defense line that the Ukrainians have. So it's not really at the doors of the capital city, but a little away on both the axes that the Russian troops have actually reached. But there are 2 other defense lines, and that is the reason why we as a crew member had to go from south of Kiev to enter the city center. Now, the moment you enter Nupur in Kiev, you would find every 500 meters there are checkposts. Now, these checkposts are not necessarily manned by the Ukrainian army, but also civilians who have taken up arms, and they have been very successful in ensuring that the south of Kiev is open, which would essentially mean that the supply lines are open for the Ukrainian army. The humanitarian aid reaches all people who are still staying back in Kiev. So all that put together, what we witnessed unfolding before our eyes is that the capital city has been completely safeguarded, and that is the reason why perhaps Nupur, despite looking at several weeks of this invasion, with the initial plan of the Russian troops of ensuring that they are in a position to capture Kiev, till date they have not been able to do so. While, yes, there have been reports of, at least late last night, of reports of explosions taking place in Kiev, we are still waiting for the official update to come in from the General Staff of Armed Forces, which is expected to come in around 8 o'clock Kiev time in a short while from now, which would give us a better understanding of perhaps what's the advancement that the Russian troops have actually made in other parts of the country. Because remember, one big other development that took place was till about 5 o'clock this morning. The Russian troops had actually given a deadline to the Ukrainian authorities to surrender Mariupol. Remember, Mariupol, a strategic city down south, that's the place where we are given to understand that the Russian troops have made a significant amount of advancement. There have been constant bombardment in those areas. Humanitarian evacuation drives have basically been stopped in Mariupol, and they have been able to a great extent move inside. Now, we do not know at this point in time, nothing to really confirm from the Ukrainian side, whether at all they have accepted, whether at all they have surrendered before the Russian troops as far as Mariupol is concerned.
Now, Shravan, you are describing to us how the Russians are holding out militarily, but what are people around you telling you? Are they optimistic of the next round of talks that takes place between the Ukrainians and the Russians? Or, do they believe that this is now going to perhaps be more protracted than was initially planned?
Well, Nupur, there are 2 parts to it. One, if you are simply asking what are the local Ukrainians saying, ordinary citizens of Ukrainians are saying, remember, they're not essentially talking much about the negotiations. This is left much to the administration. So I'll come to what the administration has to say with regards to the progress that they've made for the negotiations. Local Ukrainians, let me make this abundantly clear, that they still feel there is a significant hope right now that they will win the war. That is the reason why you would find, at least on social media, or if you just go on the streets, speak to them, you would essentially find everyone saying that we are winning the war. And it is also changing. Now, on the western side, remember, which has always been a little pro-West, pro-Europe, remember, there is a sign of limping back to normalcy. You will still find people on the street. You will still find now people going to the malls here. Shops are also opening up for a limited period of time, at least till about 7 o'clock in the evening before the curfew is actually imposed. So there is a sense of fight back even from the local Ukrainians. Let me just give you a sense. Right now it's too early, so you wouldn't really find people on the streets. But the fact of the matter is that the western side, which still remains completely unaffected, like I won't say as affected as the eastern side, but you would certainly find a lot of people on the streets and speak to them. One response that you would always get in Ukrainian, Slava Ukrainia, which is basically glory to Ukraine. Now you would find almost everyone say that, because that is something that lifts up the spirits of the Ukrainians. Now let me talk a little bit about the administration per se. How exactly are they viewing the negotiations right now, and what perhaps could be the way out? Now, right from if you take a look at the interview that was given by one of the closest aide of Zelensky to Republic TV, they had made it very clear as far as their positions are concerned. Just a few days after that interview, you had President Zelensky himself coming up and saying that they are no longer interested in the NATO membership. They made it very clear as far as the status of neutrality. That was also very clear. Both sides, Russia as well as Ukraine, they did talk about that they've made significant progress as far as these negotiations are concerned. But over the last 48 hours, Nupur, it seems that this is now dragging a little bit. You've had the advisor to the president, Podolyak, coming out in the open and saying that their demands remain the same. That is essentially a ceasefire agreement, complete withdrawal of troops from the Ukrainian soil, and then also security guarantees to be given not just by Russia but also other countries, so that this entire situation of getting into a battle does not repeat once again. On the other side, as far as Russia is concerned, remember, there have been very contradictory moves. You've had the foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, essentially saying that they've made significant progress and they're looking at an opportunity where they are, evaluating whether the neutrality is going to really work. But thereafter, you've seen the kind of strong positions that they have taken. 24 hours back, you saw they made this announcement of a nuclear drill to be carried out, suggesting that the president's family members have been moved to another location altogether. So there is this constant seesaw that is actually happening from the Russian side. Even in fact, as far as the humanitarian corridor is concerned, remember they've spoken about a humanitarian corridor to be created in several cities so that the evacuation can take place. The moment it is done, you would see shelling actually taking place on those very routes itself, delaying this entire process. So it's a kind of a seesaw right now. There's no clarity for how long perhaps will this continue. Will there be an end sight? Because President Zelensky, even till yesterday, said that he's willing to now negotiate directly with President Vladimir Putin. And despite him being called as a war criminal by President Joe Biden, he's willing to have that word with him, because he believes that if these talks do not take place, that he says that he's foreseeing a situation where the world is going to enter World War III. So, right. Of course, that is something that he says that he's going to avoid, and he's willing to have that talks with Vladimir Putin. When will that happen? We do not know.
Absolutely. And one of the things, Shravan, that's dogging these talks is the amount of distrust that we see between the two sides. For the moment, Shravan, thank you for joining us. Group Captain Vinod, thank you to you as well. We slip into a very short break on the other side.